Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we're going to have a good time. Hopefully, it's probably going to be a little bit of frustration, I would assume, that because I want to automate. Today, I want to do some automation. When you say automation, what do you mean by that? Basically, just I want to create something that does things automatically for me so that I don't have to do them all the time, which is exactly what ends up happening most of the time, and which is good on one hand, right? There's nothing wrong with repetition that builds that retention of knowledge. So I recommend you doing these things from time to time, but and especially so you don't lose those skills. But I also don't want to spend all my time doing things I already know how to do. I just want to get to the points of a lot of stuff. So I want to automate some Linux privilege escalation. This won't be my first time of doing something like this, but it will be the first time of me doing it in Python. Well, best of luck here, right? And I won't be surprised if this ends up getting broken up into a couple of different episodes. I don't want to make it too long. I don't want to give you too much information at one time to have to digest. So if I end up breaking this into multiple episodes, don't be surprised if that happens, especially since I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen because I don't know enough about Python to do it just freely. I'm going to have to learn. I'm going to have to figure out how do I do this and how do I do that? How do I make the computer do all sorts of things that I want it to do? So that's going to be just as much of my learning experience as hopefully it would be for you as well. So I want to create, let's lay it on the cards, like cards on the table. I want to create a script that when executed will perform Linux privilege escalation techniques, and from those results will either just be informational, like here's some information, you can use that to try to privesc, but I also want to try something interesting. There's a website I want to try to reach out to, grab the information that's pertinent to what I'm trying to do. If it finds the right type of information, it will actually attempt to auto-pwn that avenue. It'll say, oh, let's see if that is going to work, and it'll do it automatically for me. I don't have to do it myself. Again, pros and cons about learning and versus not now. But right now, it's more about just trying to automate something and do that. So without further ado, let's jump into this thing and kind of show you what I'm talking about and get started building it. It's not even a thing yet. Let's start building the thing so that we can get that to happen. All right, so here we are back in Kali because that's where I tend to work to do these things, right? I like to build a repertoire, a repository, as it were, of things in my Kali box, and it starts to grow from that standard install into something that's custom, that's mine. But it's nice to not have to go through or run some scripts to get tools installed. I just want to stick and start playing things and rely that stuff is there. So that's why I tend to stick with Kali. I mean, I like Parrot as well. Don't get me wrong. A lot of good stuff going on there. It actually is much more feature rich as far as tools go. But Kali is where I've spent most of my time, so I'm just much more familiar with that environment. Well, maybe one day I'll make the switch. I'll start making an active progression into that. But what are we going to do? Let's open a terminal, right? Because we're going to make a Python script that does all sorts of fun stuff. So this actually was something I had the idea of yesterday, and I was actually talking to David Bombal about it, and he was telling me about some scripts that he made as well, and he was like, oh yeah, that sounds great, it's going to be a lot of fun. I said, yeah, I think that's good, and we kind of got into this conversation about, is hacking too hard for people, and why do some of these things have to be so difficult? I think it's these hard things. I equate it to people like in special forces, right? They go through some very hard things. They do very difficult tasks to in an attempt to hone themselves into the most effective, most combat-ready soldier in the world, right? That's the whole idea behind that. I'm a huge military fan, by the way. I love everything military, special forces specifically, Navy SEALs, Delta Force. It's all awesome in my eyes. It's great. And those guys are so kick-ass. It's just fun. So, I've learned a lot about them, and that was that ended up being the conversation. It was almost a philosophical conversation at that point where, doing the hard things, learning the hard things grows us, right? That's things that push us beyond our comfort zone is what is going to grow us and make us better at what we do, because we're going to learn niche things and edge case stuff by pushing ourselves to do difficult stuff. This is hard for me. cards on the table, I am not the great. I barely know enough Python to get along. I can make a script here and there. I'm actually much more proficient in Bash. I tend to write all my stuff in Bash. And that's what I want to do. I want to start to push myself. I want to find that edge of my comfort zone and push myself beyond what I'm normally going to do. And there we go. So let's call this script. We will call it well, I'm gonna. No, I'll use. I was gonna use Nano, but I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna use Mousepad. So Mousepad. Oh, I keep forgetting to change that. I like Bash. Thank you. Mousepad, and I will call this script. We'll call it Linux underscore priv underscore es. Yeah, escalation. I guess that's what it is. .py, and I will put an ampersand on the end of that so that it will background it. I can have my terminal back. And there we go. Now I've got my mouse pad open. That way I can jump in the terminal and start testing things and not have to, bounce around. It's just a nice, easy workflow. I know I'm going to run this. It's a .py, so I don't need to do the first bin, user bin end. User bin env. There we go. And then you do Python 3, which is what I normally do. And then, so there's the first line of Python code. We've written this really more of an interpreter for the shell. So if we run the / thing, instead of having to use Python 3 to invoke it, I can just / it, and it'll look, oh, what does it want me to use? Python 3. Yeah, no problem. Okay, now that I have that, let's talk a little bit more about what I want to do. I'll just kind of write it down in here, and then we'll comment it so that we know which sections we want to do. So let's create some sections here and just kind of give ourselves some structure of what we want to do. So the first thing we want to do is just say generally, what is this? This is a Linux privilege escalation. Is it 2 L's in escalation? I can't remember. Escalation script. Yay. And we are going to, what do we want it to do? It does bing, 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 whatever this is going to be. And we'll say, what should it do? Well, it should definitely check for easy things, right? So let's have it do things like, you know what? I've got an idea. Let's go. I'm just going to shift over on a different desktop here. I'm going to open Firefox. Why sit here and try to figure all this stuff out when this road has been trodden before by people greater than we, right? So let's use their skills and resources. So I'm just going to go to Google. I know you can type it in here, but I want you guys to be able to see. Oh, because I have burp on. Let me turn off burp. Turn off. Try again. There we go. Okay, so Google Linux privilege escalation cheat sheet. Right? Let's do that. And of course, the number one with a bullet is Got Milk's Basic Linux Privilege Escalation write-up. If you have not seen this and you are getting into security, well, you are welcome, because this is something you need to get super familiar with. I'm just going to make this a little bit friendlier, give us a little more real estate. I know you're like, oh, why don't you just full screen it, Daniel? Good question. And of course, there we go. I like how Got Milk says, I'm no expert. You're not bad though. If you want to go ahead and not call yourself an expert, I get that. We all have our own things, but Got Milk knows a thing or two. That's for sure. And he does say it's just a basic and rough guide. Not every command will work for each system, as Linux varies. But this is a great laundry list of things to go to if you are trying to perform Linux privilege escalation. If you want to see that URL, well, obviously you can find it by Googling. I understand everybody wants the URL so they can just click, but just Google, right? Just go google.com, Linux privilege escalation cheat sheet. It's probably the first result. I mean, it's that simple. There's a reason there's the let me Google that for you is available, right? So let me highlight that and show you where that is. So yes, get out of the way, Microsoft. Give this to the good folks. There it is. https://blog.gotmilk.com. Of course, it's spelled with leet speak, so that's fun. /2011/08/basic-linux-privilege-escalation. Well, there's your URL, everyone. You're welcome. And you can still Google it, which is probably the quickest and easiest thing to do. Okay. So talking about enumeration, collection, enumeration is more enumeration and some more enumeration. Yeah, that's the collect part, right? So process, sort through data, analyze, and prioritization. That's something that was another interesting conversation I was having with Mr. Bomble, David, out there. We were talking about tools that point and click hack things are not as common as you would think. Most tools that you use are going to be analytical. They gather information for you. Some of them do actually point and click and hack stuff. The best thing I can think of is probably like Metasploit, which, something like that. SQL map, these auto pwn things, which is kind of like what we're building right now, kind of an auto pwn, an easy something, right? But we're building it. We know what's going on in the guts, whereas you got to get a little Ruby happy, which can be done for Metasploit and, SQL. I think SQL maps might be written in Python. I think it is. But anyway, it's up to us at the end of the day to take the information that these tools gather for us and interpret it and go and finally go, I think that's where we're going to find an issue. Let's try that. Let's go down that road, right? So it's we're the analysts. We're the brain behind it that figures out what can and cannot happen. All right, let's get into this. What can we do? Operating system. All right, so checking for OS, type and version. That's a really good idea, right? What kernel can be done. So he gives us a bunch of commands and he even tells us whether or not it's like, that's this Debian based. I love gray text on black background or some weird dark colors. Kind of hard to see when you highlight things when the highlighter is just about the same color as the text itself. But let's see if that's not their fault. That's just a consequence of using what looks like Markdown or something. So cat etsy issue, cat etsy star dash release. So let's make a section that does operating system, right? Let's jump back to our script. So it should do OS and kernel. OS, missed one thing. We'll say release and kernel info gathering. Cool. We'll do that. Oh, don't want to interpret this. All right. What else can we get it to do? Let's see here. What is the kernel version? What can be learned from environmental variables? Maybe that'd be going. Is there a printer? I know there are a couple of printer escalation hacks you can do. I'll keep going. Maybe we'll throw environmental variables in there. We're going to try to keep it simple. It can always grow later. Remember that. A wise man I once knew told me about developing an application was get it to work first and then make it awesome later, right? Just get it to work and always test as you go. Iterative testing, right? Where you do something, a little change, and you check it and make sure. You don't want to build a giant monolith and it not work and you go, why doesn't that work? I got a lot of code to go through and figure out why this isn't doing anything or is giving me errors or whatever the case is. And there's some helps that can help you with that, but we don't want to get too deep in the weeds and then have to backtrack a lot, right? So we're going to iteratively test this thing as we build. So let's see here, applications and services. So what services are running and which service has which user privilege. So I do tend to run that right there, the PS AUX, and then I'll grep that for root run stuff. So maybe we'll add that. Oh yeah, there it is right there. Haha. I don't remember what EF does. Let's test that on this system. Let's go back over here, get into here. What does PS-EF do? Does a lot of things. It's very similar to the AUX output. Let's see what happens if I grep that to pipe grep to root. What is root running? Right. So this is just the default install of it's very similar to what I'm used to seeing with just AUX. All right. So let's check the difference here. PS AUX pipe grep root. All right. So right, similar output. Actually, it looks to be a bit maybe more output. Let's see here. No, pretty similar. I got the IRQ stuff. I didn't see that before, but That's fine. All right. Pretty similar. So we'll just pick one and do that because it is always worth a look to kind of fool around with this stuff. You never know when you see something silly running as root, and if you can interact with that, well, you're interacting with it as root, or you can be sometimes. So that's a good one to look for. Let's add that. So let's make it do, what are we looking for? Services. Service, I'll say root service check. Root service check. Bam. All right, what else are we going to do? We won't make it too big, don't worry. I know it seems like a lot. There's one thing specifically that I want to make it do. But I just want to get some ideas. And these, again, I'm commenting all this out. This is just basically our laundry list of, better put, as a Christmas list, right? My wish list. This is what I want it to do at the end of the day when I'm all said and done. This would be the great thing. That's all this is. It's not going to be interpreted. I'm putting these hash symbols in front of it, so the interpreter just runs right by these things. It doesn't see it at all. All right, back to the story here. What is this here? What applications are installed? What version are they? Are they currently running? That is a really good thing to do, but man, that can be a beast to sift through. Oh, do I want to, you know what, maybe I'll just skip on by that. Any of these servers misconfigured, or any of them valuable, or any vulnerable plugins attached? Well, that's fun. Cat Etsy syslog.conf. chttp.com, flight.http.com. So this is basically looking at configuration files, because maybe in those configuration files there is a little something or other that would make you happy. There's a crazy so LSAR1 and /Etsy. What is? Oh, that's an L. I'm sorry. I'm not familiar with that capital R. At least not off the top of my head. What is that? Man LS. Give me the R. Where's the R? Way down low. It's in alphabetical order, so I should be able to find it. Recursive. I was thinking, yeah. See, I was getting confused. I was thinking, is that reverse? But no, it's recursive. So it's basically listing all the directories. Go back. Where's that at? Here it is. So this is what I'm looking at right here. So it's ls dash lowercase a, uppercase r, lowercase l, which says find. Dash a does anything that's hidden. So if it's got a period in front of it and it's a hidden file or directory, that will show up. Dash r says recursively look through all of the directories that are there. And dash l says give me that long form listing so I get permissions and things of that nature. And it's doing that through Etsy and awking out. So basically saying in that first piece is doing some regex here with the line starts with a period, star R. So it's doing some crazy regex. I'd have to Google that. Man, I'm not great with regex. The chunk is, I always have to Google that stuff. Where you're like, how to regex for, if I wanted to do set or awk for this, what is that regex? Because regex is hard. Probably going to have to do a little bit of that with the idea I've got in my mind. So I'm going to have to find out how Python implements regular expression. If I haven't said that, regex means regular expression. Basically, do a specific, very specific lookup. Find this weird thing. What is that weird thing? I don't really know, but it's going to have these kind of parameters around it. So it's going to start. The line will start with this and maybe it'll end with that. And I'm looking for, numbers strung together. So if I was looking for something like a social security number, right, out of a block of text, how do I find just social security numbers? So I'd have to give it parameters through what's called regular expression to look for anything that fits those parameters instead of a specific, social security number. So, I'm just gonna skip that. I don't, like I said, I don't want to get this too big. With jobs are scheduled, that would be a good one too, but I want to skip it. What I want to do, actually, let's just add that. We'll call that our basic thing for today. Is I'm gonna add suid -good check like that. This is one of the things I almost invariably run to immediately. First thing I always do when I gain access to a box is look for sudo privileges. Hey, can this user sudo anything? Because if it can, maybe I can get some abuse, find my way either horizontally moving into another user, and maybe that user has some privilege escalation vertically, where I can go upward in ability. If sudo doesn't have it, SUID and GUID is the next stop on my shopping list, always. And I do that because if you're not familiar with what SUID and GUID is, it's just basically saying if I have a program that runs, you can run it. You type in, I don't know, ping, right? If I change ping, actually ping is a SUID-enabled binary, a program. When it runs with elevated privileges because it has to be able to talk to the network at the lowest level, at the machine, at the kernel level, the operating systems level, right? So you have to have permissions to be able to do that. Well, how do I, as just a regular end user, without having super user privileges, do I allow my end users to ping to make sure that the stuff's working? I mean, that's a simple thing. How do I give them permission to do that? That in comes in SUID and GUID. SUID will be the set user unique ID, right? Or it's basically saying turn on a permission that when a lower level user runs this, if they have permissions to do that, then it will actually elevate their privileges to the necessary privileges, and so they can run the tool. As soon as the tool's done running, it drops out. You're starting hopefully to see where the issue lies and why this is a privilege escalation vector. GUID is the same kind of thing, except instead of on just users in general, it goes up against groups. Like what groups can so there you go. At least if I'm remembering correctly, that's you. I'm sure that if I do a Control F for SUID, hey, look at that, sticky bits, right? So sticky bits are for something else, but this is SUID and GUID. Does it tell us anything about GUID? No, just kind of the idea of what we're going to do here. And we're basically going to run commands very similar to this right here. So we're going to do find. We're going to do a find command for permissions and look for groups and users. Oh, this does both. Haha, that's great. Honestly, I can just copy that and just drop it in because that's exactly how I would have put it. You know why? Because that's how I learned it. Guess who I learned it from? Yup. Got Milk's privilege escalation cheat sheet that we're looking at right now. So you're like, hey Daniel, how do you know this stuff? Where do you learn this? Google is your friend. Google is a very good friend. The good news is lots of free information out there. So I'm just going to, actually I didn't need to type that. I know that command off the top of my head. So I'm just going to put the what it does vernacular, which is check for SUID, GUID, abusable binaries, like that. Why not, right? It's always fun to say the word abusable when you're talking about computers. We're talking about computers, right? So there we go. All right, so I think that's a good start of stuff we want it to do. Now we just have to make the thing do it. So where do we begin? What's the first thing we should do? So I'm a very menu-driven person. I like menus. I like going like option by option. Press 1 to do this, press 2 to do that, that kind of stuff. So I like building that kind of system. I know most people probably don't because it's interactive. You got to work with it, especially if I'm dropping it on a machine that I might have some janky shell and that might break it. So it might not be a good idea to make that. That makes it tougher for me because I like that stuff. But let's just start building. I'll probably build this out into different functions. So I'll have like, do I have to type in function? What is the Python function thing? Is it function? Let's save this first so I can start getting some syntax highlighting. Control S. There we go. And let's do function. What are you doing? Has been externally modified. Do you want to reload from disk? Oh, okay. Okay. Well, let me copy this first. Don't cancel. Let me copy just in case this like freaks out. Copy. Control S. Okay. Looks to be saved. Now can we type in? Yeah, thank you. Function. And it's not highlighting it. I can't remember how to do Python functions. I don't do it enough. Forgive me for not being perfect. All right, here we go. Python 3 functions. And Python 3 functions. It's in tutorial support. It'll give me the basic structure here. So Whoops. Man, me and that minus sign have a torrid love affair going on. Is usually the plus I'm looking for. Def function name. That's it. Booyah. Remember it now. All coming back to me. Then you'll have any parameters, and then it's a colon, and then you got to tab in. All right. There we go. Def, and then we name our functions. So the first one's going to be like OS. Should I do uppercase? Maybe that'll make it a little easier to read. OS check. Maybe OS kernel underscore check. Like that. Bang. Give it a little of that action. Do I have to space it? I don't think I do. And then in here, we'll just put a little placeholder of this will check for OS release and kernel info. Bam. I want to say also that you need, is that right? I think you need some curly brackets going on in here. Nope, I guess not, man. I'm starting to get confused on my programming languages because of all the different stuff the different ones I've been looking at. So that's good. Don't need that. Excellent. So that should be fine. Let's do another one. Def, and we're going to define, what's the next one? Root service check. And we'll call that root service check. Bam, bam. This will check for services running as root. Def, one more, no, two more. Oh, I put this in here. Look at me. I don't need that. I'm such a silly boy. There we go. Let's do suid dash GUID check. Ooh, can I not use the dash? Doesn't look like it. Underscore anyway. GUID underscore check. Such a silly pants. Whoops. There we go. Whoa. What is this? I'm losing my mind. There we go. This is the fun of creating programs. You get to go, why? What was I thinking? I love coming back to stuff that I've written like a year or two ago and then trying to like make it better. I'm like, this needs a little polish on it. And then me go, what was I doing? It's probably that I'm a better coder now than I was at that time. So now I'm going, this guy, he's a joke. He is. This will check for, what are we looking for? Oh yeah, abusable suid slash GUID binaries. And again, a binary is just a program. That's what it is. That's what they're called. So if you hear that terminology and you've never heard it before, you're welcome. Right? That's what I'm all about. I'm passing on things in my brain as I learn new things into my brain, right? I do want to go back and do one more thing in each one of these things. Well, we've got this information, which honestly, I should probably just do it this way where I cut this out. So I'm going to cut, paste it on top of each one of these things. That's a better or a more common programming practice. Paste, and then paste it. So when you're creating comments for your code, cut. Typically, people put what that code is going to do, especially if it's like just erase that and put one. If you're going to do like a function like this, most people just put it above the function. What is this function meant to do? And what I'm going to do go back right now is I'm just going to do like a print. Yeah. Oop. Bam. So I'll do a print just so I can make sure we're going to get ready to start testing a little bit just to make sure functions work before we get too far, right? Print, you are in the, or I'll just write kernel check function. OS kernel check function. OS/kernel check function. Like that. Bam. That way it has something to do. And then I'm actually going to make this a recursive program because that's typically how I do things. I like recursive instead of like loops, where they'll just bounce around to different functions that I create. So this one will say root service check function, bam, bam. And then this one will be suid GUI. So print. That way I know that I have made it to the right place and that it did the thing I think it should do. It's always nice to give yourself some of these kind of types of help. So suid dash GUID check function. Bam. All right. And then we will have that. Oh, I am building this to be recursive, aren't I? I don't need it to do that, but it's still good to. Maybe I want. I like building recursive. Again, I'm going back to my default of I like menu-driven systems. I like being able to go. I want you to run a privilege escalation check for this and privilege escalation check for that. Oh, okay. Which option is that? Well, that's option 2. Press 2. It does the thing. It does stuff. Do you want me to do anything? And I like to be interactive with my programs, but that might not be the best. So we're just going to have to make this like a top-down script. And again, this is starting to modify what I'm thinking about what I want to do and how I'm going to need to do it. All right. So the first thing we'll do here is we still might be able to make it interactive. I don't think that will be a problem, honestly. A little sip here. Stay hydrated, helps you think. It might not be a problem if I make it recursive, since it's all text-driven anyway. So here is going to be the fun part about this. Ultimately, at the end, the finished product, the big jewel in the crown, as it were. I want this function right here, the suid GUID check. I want it to do something for me, right? Let's go back to our website. There's this website, or our web browser. There's a website. I'm going to go to Google so you can see the big google.com. There's no google.com. Oh, don't highlight the whole thing. Whose idea was that? Google.com. If you look for GTFO bins in Google, there it is, gtfobins.github.io. Check that out if you've never done it before. This is a great site. So what the site does is it allows me to look for binaries if they're set for things like if I need a shell, right? So you got all these different types of things. If I need a shell, I'm stuck, right? I'm in a system, I've gained some access, but that access is very limited. So I want to break out of like it says, a restricted environment, or I want to spawn an interactive system shell. What binaries are available to me? And let me check and see if any of those can do that. And I can do that using GTFO bins. So it's super handy. You can also break out restricted environments by running non-interactive system commands. How can I make a reverse shell? How can I make non-interactive reverse shells, bind shells, file upload, file download, file write, file read, library allow. But really what I'm looking for what we're doing is suid, right? Bam. These are the binaries that just do suid. And I can somehow grab that or click it like is what I wanted to do. And you'll notice now it's put this plus suid here, and it's only returning the different things that do this. So if I had the cat command, which is usually available, if the suid binary, if the suid permission has been checked, has been enabled, well, I can, guess what? Possibly use that as a privilege escalation, right? So here is the example on how to do that very thing. So it says install-m equals xs which cat. So I guess if cat is not installed, maybe it's trying to. I don't know what that's doing. Sudo install-m. I'm not familiar with that. I have to look that up. But then you do this L file to read, cat that file, and bam, you are gravy, right? So that's interesting. I want to explore that more for me. I've never abused cat for this. So let me see something that I have abused, or maybe copy. That could be an interesting one. You'll notice this L file business is happening a lot, and you're just creating a system variable, a local system variable in Bash, doing that, and then you feed that back into like echo whatever this is, or just some data, or the word data, and then pipe that into copy, If you've got this dev stand-in, it'll read that file name, and bam, you can write that file, right? And then there's a SUID way to do it, or a way to privilege escalate. So what I want to do is I want to incorporate the site. I want to be able to like scrape that site. So conversation, I'm too far ahead. What I would like for it to do, right? Our program, our automation, our privilege escalation script, what it should do at the end of the day is check for the target system. Once we've gained access, check the target system for SUID, GUID binaries. Then take those binaries and compare that against this website. I want it to do it automatically. So we're going to scrape the site down looking for these items that have SUID capabilities or GUID capabilities. And then, well, you just look for SUID because it's the same thing, whether it's SUID or GUID, really. And then try, like, steal this portion out of it and attempt to do that thing automatically. Right? That does sound fun. How successful I'm going to be at this, I don't know. But it does sound interesting, and I'd really like to be able to do it. I'm sure it's doable. I just don't know if I can do it. I'm going to have a lot of learning to do on this. So that's the idea. We've been going a bit at this now. Let's finish this up, and we'll just call this episode 1, like part 1 or whatever, and just get the basics down. Let's make sure that our script actually works, and I am going to make it recursive. Right? Should I do that right now? I'm pretty sure all this will work. Let's just define a main like that. And that way we can do, we know this is the main portion of the script. I want to see if I can, this is going to be a lot of like if then that try catch kind of stuff. Let's just check and make sure this works. Print, I don't want to get too far on this. This is the main function. Bam, bam. All right. And then you just have to call your first, sure, you have to call them. So it would be like main, I don't think I have to have the stuff. Go back to here. So when you're calling this one, well, that's a little too crazy. This one's called function name. That's the syntax. This is a horrible example. Print me string. All right, so yeah, I see what's going on here. So it's a horrible example. It's too in depth. We need a very simplistic Python docs, built-in functions. Those are built-in functions, right? Yeah, there's functions that already exist. More flow controls, documentation. Let's just go here and see if there is a function area. Because I don't, or we could just test it. Let's just test it. Sick of this thing. Let's try that. Let's see if it prints the main function. Let me Control S, go here. It is called, what do we call it again? Linux priv check S. Yeah, there we go. So Python 3, a Linux priv check. Bam. Yeah, it didn't do it. So that means, I think maybe you need that. Control S. Booyah. Worked. This is the main function. Excellent. So now we have at least a basic structure of what we want to do right now. Again, I don't want to get too far in the weeds. We'll come back for another part. And in that part, what we'll do is we'll work on creating the menu-driven system for bouncing into what do I want this thing to do. And then we'll start working on each of those functions separately on making them do the thing that we want it to do. So I think that's, like I said, a good stopping spot for us. We've learned a lot about what we're going to do, where we got the information on how we're going to do it. We got a pie in the sky idea of, man, if that works, it's going to be awesome. And yeah, well, we've learned a little bit more about Python. I'm starting to remember. It's been a while since I've had to play around making functioning stuff. So trying to get that knowledge fresh in my mind. If it's new to you, you've learned something. If it's not new to you, you're probably yelling at me going, you got to do the parentheses, Daniel. But yeah, I know. I'm sorry. But yeah, I just don't remember all these simple things. It's just hard for me. But the good thing is there's Google, right? You just Google the thing and I figured out how to do it. That to me is what it's all about at the end of the day. Can I figure out how to do it? Not am I some Python master or hacking guru person, whatever, right? As long as I can just figure it out. That's the skill in my mind anyway, if you have that skill where you're able to figure out, then you can do it. If you ask me, can Bob hack? I don't know. Bob, can you hack? Well, and he sits there and he Googles for a minute and he comes back and he's hacked in the machine. I go, Bob can hack. But Bob hacked it. Good job, Bob. Sally, how about you? Can you hack? Sally, Sally can hack too. Look at that. That doesn't mean their skill sets and the stuff that they've learned is huge, but they obviously know a thing or two, enough that they were successful. At the end of the day, if you did it, then you did it, right? You are the person that knows how to do that, or at least can figure out how to do that. And I think you, at that point, deserve the moniker that is hacker in my mind. That's me. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. We will have a part 2 to this, as I said, with those wonderful things that we're going to check out and do. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.